Harry's screen? Oh, there's Harry. Okay. Harry, can you hear us? You there, Harry?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Harry. All right, Marilyn, it sounds like we're ready to go.
Okay, great. We got everybody on board. Good evening, everybody. I hope all is well. My name is Marilyn McDonald. I'm Chair of Bridgewater Conservation, and I'm just going to read a few things in before I open up the meeting. Bridgewater Conservation Commission, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order superseding certain provisions in the open meeting law, GL 30-A18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Bridgewater Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation in the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately assess the proceedings in real time. The meeting is being recorded. Within 48 hours, we will post a link of the recording on the town's website and or the town's social media. The following members of Bridgewater Conservation are participating remotely: Marilyn McDonald, Chair; Harry Bailey, Vice Chair; Eileen Prisco, Member. During the meeting, all votes of the board will be taken via roll call. The following Bridgewater Town staff will also be participating remotely: Steve Slobo, Conservation Agent, and Jasmine Farinacci, Executive Assistant. At this time, everyone's mics is muted. The Conservation's mics will remain unmuted throughout the whole meetings as items appear in the agenda, and projected representative mics will be unmuted. If the project is public hearing and allows for public comment, we ask that you use the chat feature to ask a question by listing your name and address and your question. The Chair or Vice Chair will recognize all questions in order. You can also use the raise my hand feature in the participating menu, and you will be unmuted when the chair recognizes you, or Jasmine in this case. Again, please state your name and address before asking any questions. If you're on phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. For those of you who have been to a conservation public hearing, I just want to let you know how they do prevail. We have a 100-foot jurisdiction from the wetlands. That means that we're governed by both rules and regulations of state and local bylaws to ensure that there is minimal impact to any wetlands within 100 feet, and to ensure that any project meets the performance standards to also ensure minimal impact to the wetlands. The applicant will present their filing. The board and the agent will then have the opportunities to ask questions. After we ask our questions, we do open questions to the public on the filing. We ask that you approach all questions directly to the chair. And we ask that you keep it to a minimum of 3 minutes to keep the proceedings rolling. At the end of a hearing, we either do two things. We either continue it or close the filing. If we continue it, that is your notice of the next meeting. We have 21 days to render a decision. There is a appeal period of 10 business days afterwards that you can appeal any order of Master EP of the AOCs, of the order of conditions. I will read into tonight's agenda and we'll get rolling. We have no old business. New business, we have abbreviated notice of delineation for 180 Broad and a notice of intent for High Street Dam. Conservation Commission has a request for certificate of compliance, Wall Street, a request for certificate of compliance, Easy Street, and a request for certificate of compliance, Old Forest Street. So that being said, please, under new business, Jasmine, if you can open up 180 Broad Street with the notice. Do we have Jasmine?
Jasmine, can you hear us?
I can. Can you not hear me?
We couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
Okay.
We can hear you now.
All right. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Bridgewater Local Bylaw, the Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing held as a virtual meeting over Zoom. A link and instructions to participate in the meeting will follow and be posted to the calendar on the town's website at www.bridgewaterma.org. A recording of the meeting will also be posted to the town's webpage within 48 hours after the meeting ends. This notice is for review of an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by Edgewood Development Company, LLC, 3 Belcher Street, Plainville, MA. The applicant seeks approval of a delineated wetland line. The property is owned by Henry Perkins Company and is located on 180 Broad Street, Bridgewater, map 21, parcel 144. Please contact the Bridgewater Conservation Office at 508-697-0950 for the hearing date and time. All interested persons are encouraged to attend.
Thank you, Jasmine. 180 Broad Street, you are now open.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to start. My name is Stephen Meltzer from Edgewood Development Company. I'm just going to give a quick overview of the project that we hope to submit for permitting going forward, just as a brief overview before you, we're before you tonight on an ANRAD, not for the project itself, but I thought it would give you some context if we showed you a little bit of the project that we're doing. I don't have the ability to share my screen. I don't know if Seaver does. Maybe he can pull up the plan and I can talk about it that way. I'm not sure what your protocol is for that, but basically what we're hoping to do is a redevelopment of the Henry Perkins Foundry. There's about 12 acres, give or take, on Broad Street that goes back from Broad Street along the railroad on one side and Broad Street on the other. And on the third side, basically a triangle, is the town river. Most of the, but not all of the jurisdictional areas for the Concom come about because of the town river and the riverfront. Where our project is basically consistent of the removal of the buildings that are there now, grading in the property, and we'll be constructing a building in the front, which will be a mixed-use building with retail on the first floor and residential apartments on the second floor. That's a small building in the front, and then with any luck, the project will include a larger building with residential apartments in the back, green space, and recreational and amenities for the members of the community to use. Oh, great. Thank you for bringing that up, Seaver. So you can see on the plan, we're, as much as possible, we're avoiding the jurisdictional areas. Seaver Anderson is with us tonight from Par Corporation. He is our environmental and wetlands engineer who will be providing the information on the ANRAD. But we also have with us tonight Peter DeShaves, who is we've engaged as an environmental engineer. He's done a significant amount of soils testing on the site. So in case you have any questions or concerns with regard to the soils. And Christine LeBlanc is also here, who is the licensed site professional who has been working with the Perkins Foundry for a couple of decades anyway, on the environmental challenges out on that site. I'm happy to answer any questions about the project.
Did we lose him?
I think he froze. Yeah, I think we lost him. Seaver, if you'd like to pick up for him, and we'll see if Mr. Meltzer makes it back in.
Yeah,
This is,
certainly.
the time,
Looks like
but
he's back.
Oh, okay.
and as I said, there are some soils issues that we're working with DEP, and Peter Shaves can give you information on that. But I'm going to hand it off to Seaver Anderson, who's going to talk about the wetlands issues and give an overview of that and get us started. Unless anybody has any questions now.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks to the commission for hearing us tonight. As mentioned, the site is located on 180 Broad Street in Bridgewater. Here's a locus map showing its location. There's Broad Street. The MBTA commuter rail goes along the southwestern edge of the property. Broad Street follows or delineates the eastern edge of the property, and then the town river defines the northern boundary. I'm just going to bring up the ANRAD plan. So site wetlands consist of the town river to the north, The southern bank of the river was delineated by PAR, and this is defined by the R series flags that begin on the northwestern edge of the property and delineate the river for the length of it to Broad Street. There is also a bordering vegetated wetland that is located along the town river. It's a floodplain wetland, and its edge is well defined by, there's a dirt road that runs along here, and it's a pretty defined break and slope that delineates that wetland edge. I should also mention that the banks of the town river are very steep. You can tell by these contour lines here, it's a very steep slope that goes pretty much right from upland down to the banks of the river. So there's no real gradual wetland edges on the property. There's a 25-foot no activity zone, as you all know, and then a 200-foot riverfront area and a 100-foot buffer zone off of these features. Also delineated on the site is the extent of previously developed riverfront area, which extends to the break in this steep slope that's present along pretty much the entire site, except for this one area where a dirt road comes through here. This portion of the riverfront area consists of previously developed, as with the definition in the WPA, as it consists of abandoned dumping grounds. It exhibits lack of topsoil, and this is evidence throughout the site. We tried to make that as clear as possible in the photos provided in the ANRAD. I can pull those up if necessary. There's evidence of old foundry materials, asphalt, slag, concrete debris. You don't have to dig very far for it to be very noticeable, and this constitutes a previously developed area. So in this resource, we request approval of these delineated lines and that mapping of the previously developed riverfront area, as it will be critical to the design of the project going forward. And thank you. That was all for tonight. If Peter, if you need any questions on the soils further, as Steve mentioned, Peter has done borings and test pits and can go into more detail on the site soils in this area.
Thank you. Yes, I would like some detail on the soil testing that you guys did. What type of soils you found?
Sure. All right. Thank you for having us attend your meeting tonight and listening to the explanation of our project. As Seaver had indicated, the steep slope from the top of the bank down to the river and sort of along the river, the materials there generally consisted of a foundry sand, with very, very coarse foundry sand, which was previously used in the foundry molds. And, some had some smaller pieces of concrete, but for the most part, it was a foundry sand, also known as green sand, although it was not colored green. And it just has been stockpiled there, historically after it has served its purpose in the foundry molds.
Can you go into, with the soil testing, can you go into some more detail of what type of soils you found, like an RCS 1, 2, any COM, like any type of testing
Sure.
that way?
We tested several samples for a range of compounds, including extractable petroleum hydrocarbon fractions and target analytes, volatile petroleum hydrocarbon fractions and target analytes, PCBs, metals, and volatile organic compounds. With the exception of metals, we did not detect any of the other compounds in the sand at concentrations above the laboratory limits or above RCS1 standards. And as far as metals, and we had tested for the MCP 14 metals. There were some exceedances of the RCS1 standards. One sample of copper and lead, another of chromium, and a third sample of lead. The remaining samples, total of 10, had lower levels of metals, but nothing that exceeded DEP reporting standards. And at this point, they are not considered reportable concentration, given the site use, the generation, and we are working with the DEP on obtaining a beneficial use determination for the project.
Great, thank you for the explanation. Steve, any follow-up? I don't know if you've been out, I know.
Yeah,
you will.
I did get a chance to go out to the site before Thanksgiving. I walked the entirety of the line, the riverbank line, along the town river. I checked the transects that were located down in that floodplain BVW that Seaver described, where those were done, and just kind of lined them up. I have no disputes with any flag locations. I think it's flagged appropriately, and for the purpose of tonight's filing and this application, I see that, and I suggest an issuance of an ORAD, order of resource area delineation, based on those facts of walking the line and confirming what Seaver had put in place and on the plan.
All right, thank you, Steve. Conservation members, Harry, Eileen, any input, please?
Yes.
Go ahead, Harry.
Okay, my name's Harry Bailey. I'm the Vice Chair of the Conservation. I am also the Co-Chair of the Taunton River Stewardship Council. So I will be checking out the river and protecting it. And I was going over the plan, that's why I was a little late. I was reading it. So far, everything looks good, so we'll go from there.
The only question that I have is, were there any existing observation wells on this property? To Mr. Deshaz?
Yes, there were existing observation wells on the property, and they were sampled.
Mhm.
And groundwater did not exhibit any of the compounds that have been detected in soil.
So were those closed out? Or were those still open for testing?
They were still open.
They were.
Yes.
So is there an order for a cleanup or no?
No, there is at this point no need for any cleanup at the site.
Okay. I guess that's it for now.
Okay, any further comments, Harry, Steve?
No more further comments from me.
Okay, so at this time, I will ask anybody in the meeting, if they have a question on this filing, you can signal Jasmine and Chin. This is the question on 180 Broad Street and red filing. Give them a minute.
Yep, give them on that. I'm not seeing any hand raise, and the chat box is quiet.
Okay, all right, so given no public questions, I find at this time, I would probably entertain a motion to close the meeting. We have time to go out and take a quick look. But Jasmine, our next meeting would be, it's obviously not December 24th. When are we scheduled for the next meeting?
If it's January 14th.
14th, okay.
I have a problem with that. That's the Taunton River Stewardship Council meeting night.
Okay.
Well, we can have time before that to discuss an alternative date, then that
Okay.
would give enough public notice. So given any further comments, Chair would entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close on the 180 Broad Street, ORAD.
Second.
Here in a second, any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, hearing none, Chair will take a roll call vote. Marilyn McDonald, aye. Harry Bailey,
Aye.
Eileen Prisco.
Aye.
Thank you guys very much for your presentation. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next year.
That's the first one so far.
Yeah.
All right, moving right along. Jasmine, if you can read in, please, the notice of intent for High Street Dam, Malone and Macboom.
Yeah, you can hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you.
In accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Bridgewater Local Wetland Bylaw, the Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing held as a virtual meeting over Zoom on December 10th, 2020. A link and instructions to participate in the meeting will follow to be posted to the town's calendar on the town's website at www.bridgewaterma.org. A recording of the meeting will also be posted to the town's webpage within 48 hours after the meeting ends. The hearing is on a notice of intent filed by Bridgewater MA. The applicant proposes to remove the High Street Dam, replace the High Street Bridge, and restore the town river channel. The property is owned by the town of Bridgewater and MEM Realty Trust and is located at High Street in Bridgewater, Mass. Map 10, parcel 40 and 41. Please contact the Bridgewater Conservation Office at 508-697-0950 for the hearing date and time. All interested persons are encouraged to attend.
Thank you, Jasmine. High Street Dam project, you are now open.
Thank you very. Oh,
Michael
sorry.
wanted to say something as well.
Nope. Thank you for entertaining the request, and I'll turn it over to Chris Hool from Massachusetts DER to sort of guide the presentation.
Yep. Thank you very much, Chair, and well as the rest of the commission members and Mr. Solbo. My name is Chris Hool. I'm with the Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration. We're a division under the Department of Fish and Game. Before I get started here, I had a couple administrative things, but I was wondering if we could share the screen of Andy Green and also keep Megan Raymond unmuted because we're going to have a few co-presenters here.
I gave share screen to Andy already, and I just unmuted Megan.
I'll get started once I see it pop up here on my end.
So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
I can't.
I cannot either.
All right, hold on a second. About now.
We see you, Andy.
So let's see, I must be clicking the wrong screen. Let's see.
Oh, I'm seeing it now.
How about now?
I've got
See-
it now.
There we go. Bingo.
There it is. Thank you very much. Just a couple administrative things. We did receive a DEP file number this evening, which is up on the screen. And I passed along that information to Mr. Sobel. I hope you got that.
Yep.
Oh. Andy, did you change something here?
Yeah, I had some things popping up. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
The green cards and the certified mailings and all that were sent to your office over FedEx yesterday, I believe, and we also sent via email, as far as I know. If there's any questions on that, we can.
No, I'm pretty sure we received those, correct, Jasmine?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, Jasmine wouldn't open if she didn't. You're good.
Thanks. And lastly, the ad legal notice did post on December 3rd. So again, my name is Chris Hool. I'm with the Department of Fish and Game, Division of Ecological Restoration. In 2016, the High Street Dam Removal and Bridge Replacement Project, otherwise known as the Town River Restoration Project, was designated by the Commonwealth as a priority project for river restoration. The High Street Dam is the first dam from the ocean. Removal of the dam will open up about 10 miles of river for passage of river herring and American eel. It will improve water quality and restore natural river processes, as well as removal of the dam and replacement of the bridge will have various climate resilience and community resilience benefits that Andy's going to touch on a little bit later in the presentation. So I think we can go to the next slide. So this presentation might look familiar to the public meeting or public information session, excuse me, that was given a couple of weeks ago. So I apologize if anyone has already seen that, but we think it does a good job of really outlining the details of the project. So first, to orient us, the project site is located on High Street, of course, just south of the West Bridgewater line, circled in red. The project work zone is solely in the town of Bridgewater. The dam impoundment is quite long and narrow and extends up into West Bridgewater, up to about the Route 28 bridge crossing, or just downstream of the War Memorial Park. Next slide. I want to take just a minute to recognize the project team. Although I'm presenting tonight on behalf of the project team, this is a lot of work has gone in by a number of different folks, state, federal agencies, nonprofits, as well as our consultant partners. So first I want to recognize town manager Michael Dutton from the town of Bridgewater. Bridgewater is the proponent on this project. We have the Flahertys, otherwise MEM Realty Trust, who is the private owner of the High Street Dam, otherwise known as the Jenkins Pond Dam. We have representatives from Mylone and McBroom here tonight, Andy Green and Megan Raymond, who you're going to hear from shortly. The Public Archaeological Laboratory is a historical consulting firm that we have working on the project to help us with various historical mitigation and analysis. Sarah Burns from the Nature Conservancy is with us here tonight as well. And those of you might be familiar with the Nature Conservancy. They've done a lot of restoration work and nature-based solutions work in the Taunton River watershed. And the High Street Dam or dam removal project is really a keystone element to much of the dam removal and river restoration work that they have done in this region. We have Jim Turek from the NOAA Restoration Center, and we have Suzanne Payton from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, both federal agencies. And then lastly, we have Sarah Turner from the Division of Marine Fisheries, who is a sister agency to the Division of Ecological Restoration, of course, my agency. And we also have with us Carly Pristak from DER as well. Next slide. So just quickly, the regulatory pathway. We are proposing this project to you tonight. We filed a notice of intent for ecological restoration project. This project we feel fits within the criteria of 310 CMR, 310 CMR 10.13, notice of intent for ecological restoration projects. The specific eligibility criteria that we fall under are the dam removal criteria, as well as the freshwater stream crossing replacement criteria. We have a number of other permits that we know we need for this project and have filed. We have the 401 water quality certificate, which application has been filed and is pending. Similarly, our Chapter 91 dredge permit and bridge license for the new bridge, that is also filed and pending. And finally, our Chapter 253 dam alteration permit with the Office of Dam Safety, which is pending and should be issued quite soon. Next slide, please. Just to touch quickly on project timeline. Planning for this project began in about 2015. Again, I said in 2016, it was accepted by the Commonwealth as a priority project. At that time, we also held a first of 3 public meetings. Shortly thereafter, in 2017, Mylone and McBroom completed a feasibility study. We then shared the results of that at another public meeting. Tried to address public concerns as part of the preliminary design process and Section 106 historical consultation process. I'll just add on the historical aspects, the NOAA Restoration Center is the lead federal agency for this project, and they're leading all Section 106 related or historical related questions. So if anything comes up on that, we'll have some folks on the call to take some of those questions. 2020 is when we really started permitting. We hope to complete final design and permitting next calendar year to set us up for bidding and construction during the summer summer period of 2022. And that's based on various fisheries time of year restrictions and trying to minimize disruption of traffic. Next slide. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy Green from Mylone and McBroom. Just quickly, I may ask, is when we get to the question and answer period, if it's okay with the commission, I'd like to take those questions and I may delegate them to the various partners, if that's acceptable to the commission.
Yes, at this time, the chair would delegate them to you.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening. My name is Andy Green. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Mylone and McBroom, and I manage the Water Resources Engineering Group in our office. And so I want to talk about the project need associated with this project. The first two bullets are related to infrastructure, the dam and the bridge. And it's important to note that there are almost 3,000 dams in Massachusetts. And just like the rest of New England, they were constructed either during the colonial era or during the Industrial Revolution, and they powered the industry and the mills of our region. Unfortunately, or a fact of time and change, over the last century, those dams and mills have fallen into disuse, and most of the infrastructure is gone. This site, Stanley Iron Works Park, there's nothing left of the buildings other than some old foundations. And what often happens on these old mill sites is the dam remains and it falls into disrepair because it no longer has a purpose. And so it can become a hazard. By removing the dam and replacing the bridge, we improve public safety in the site. The dam itself is categorized as in fair condition, and it is a significant hazard dam, which means that there is the potential for loss of life, damage to houses and infrastructure if the dam were to fail in a storm or a flood event. The other thing is the bridge at High Street is also old and it's undersized, so it doesn't convey the design storms that you would want it to convey in a safe fashion when there are storm events. The other project needs listed, as Chris mentioned, this dam is the first dam from the sea. So by removing it, we improve fish passage for diagamous fish to move further upstream. By removing the dam and also increasing the capacity of the bridge, that it has the benefit of increasing resiliency to climate change. And also by removing both the dam and replacing the bridge, we will improve and reduce localized flooding in the area. And speaking of localized flooding, so this is a picture of the Lincoln Athletic Building, which is basically within the island of land between the town river and the mill race. This photo is from 1968, and you can see that the river has completely gone around the building here. So project goals and objectives: by replacing the bridge and improving the intersection, we provide improved multimodal transportation, replacement of utilities within the corridor, and will stabilize infrastructure and the structure itself of Lincoln Athletic Building. We are going to manage the impounded sediments within the stream channel upstream of the dam in a controlled manner. And I say this on every dam removal project that I work on, is that we want to improve access and bring people to the river. Sometimes they're walled off and not easily accessible for the public. And probably one of the most important goals and objectives is that by removing the dam, we'll restore the natural river processes, the natural movement of flow of water, sediment, and nutrients in the river the way it would have before man intervened. So this is a zoom in of the site. As I mentioned, Stanley Iron Works Park is right in the middle of this picture. High Street goes from the lower left and sweeps around to the east, to the right, is up in this map. Lincoln Athletic Building is north of High Street on that small piece of property. a piece of land that's surrounded by the river. Town River flows from the top of the page to the south under High Street. You can see the dam is that whitewater area that's kind of in the middle, shows up nicely. And at this site, there's a mill race that flows around Lincoln Athletic to the west of Stanley Iron Works Park. And the town of Bridgewater Highway Department is also in the lower right-hand corner of this aerial photo. And I'm going to turn it over to Megan.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andy. Good evening. For the record, my name is Megan Raymond. I'm a professional wetland scientist and registered soil scientist with Mylona McBroom, and I'm a principal scientist here and the Wetlands and Waterways lead. And I've been involved with the project since the feasibility study in 2017, and that began with the delineation of the wetland resources out in the vicinity of the project area, which included 500 feet upstream of the dam and approximately 250 feet downstream of the dam. These features are typical to what you see in a perennial river system, the town river. We have a inland bank that borders the aquatic and terrestrial environment. In this location, the mean annual high water line comprised this boundary. Downstream of the dam, the mean annual high water line is comprised of vertical masonry banks. And as you move upstream through the impoundment, these banks are earthen in nature, with a variety of vegetation, very sparse, but primarily shrubby. There are a few areas of bordering vegetated wetland to the town river in the areas that are noted in green on this plan. A larger forested and emergent area up at the northern top of the page on river right. As we move downstream, we have a small area of scrub shrub just north of High Street, just north of the bridge. That's just a small assemblage, about 3,000 square feet of shrubs, primarily dominated by silky dogwood in that location. As we move further downstream, we have one bordering vegetated wetland that exists on river left, just adjacent to the highway or the public works maintenance facility. And this is a feature that has some ephemeral drainage. There's a culvert that feeds into this area at the northern tip of this teardrop feature. It's fed by some dam overflow, as well as directly from the impoundment, as well as some stormwater running off from the maintenance building, parking lot, and the other infrastructure in this area. That standing water superficially expresses itself in a rill that runs down the bank to the west, the western boundary. You can see the intermittent stream symbology that connects that feature back to the main stem of the town river. In addition to that, we have the mill race that Andy described, which is our sort of a bypass area that exists downstream of High Street. And this area is also vertically lined with stone blocks and vertical lined sluiceway in this location. In addition to those resources, bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank and riverfront, we also have the land underwater that is below the mean low water line of the town river. As well, we have a bordering land subject to flooding with the FEMA designated 100-year floodplain in this location. And I'll turn it back to Andy to continue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So just to kind of wrap everything into some nice pictures. So this is the High Street Bridge. This is looking upstream. So that's Lincoln Athletic on the left there on the north side of the road. And it's actually kind of interesting. If you look on this side of the road, those four little openings are the old stone culverts that the entire river flows through at this location. So it's really not a surprise that it's undersized. And then this is also looking in the same upstream direction. This was taken, we actually removed some of the boards over on the raceway and dropped the water level in the pond about 4 feet, or the river behind the dam. And this actually shows the dam really well. Usually this is that white water that you would see in that aerial, and it's covered with water and difficult to see. But believe it or not, that is a wood structure that's a timber decked wooden crib dam. So you can imagine that the condition that those timbers are in after 100 years. And so the project elements associated with the site, this is an aerial of that same area with the Lincoln Athletic Building labeled there in the middle. And so what we're proposing to do is the yellow highlight is the dam itself and removing the dam. The yellow box at the downstream section, there's a very short, about 1 foot high concrete weir that's used to direct the fish into the fish ladder that's there. So that will also be removed. And then the purple is High Street Bridge that will be removed and replaced. Oops, sorry, I went too fast there. And then the blue is the reconstruction of Town River in a naturalized fashion. We'll remove the accumulation of sediment about 2 feet in the lower section and about 1 foot of sediment in the upper section. And we utilize natural channel methods when we design our stream restoration projects in order to as close mimic nature as we can with some features that are standard or typical that normally found in nature, with some rock and some root wads and some bank stabilization measures. And then associated with the bridge replacement, the red represents the realignment of Wall Street in a more traditional teed up fashion, which is a safer orientation for that intersection than the current Y intersection. And there's some improvements to the driveway and access to the DPW facility. And then last on this slide is there's some stormwater quality improvements. The green box on the left is an offline stormwater treatment chamber that will treat all the stormwater in High Street to the west up the hill as far as I believe that drainage system starts at the intersection with Main Street. And then also there's a green box adjacent to the red pavement improvements, and that's a bioinfiltration swale that will be used to treat the stormwater which flows from the driveway and the new parking in that area. This is a similar drawing. This is our nuts and bolts construction access plan. We've gone to some considerable measures based upon input from several partners to make sure that our access through the Stanley Ironworks Park is in areas that will not disturb the existing foundations and remnants of buildings that are there. And we've placed that so to minimize or will eliminate any potential disturbance. And then we also have construction access from the driveway to the Department of Public Works. And obviously we also need to get into the river upstream of the High Street roadway as well. And then just to talk about, so that construction entrance or that the construction staging plan, we have construction entrances, anti-tracking pads for all of our access points to minimize tracking of sediment or silt out onto the roadways. And then I guess I'm going to go back to that slide for a second to talk about water control. So in order to remove the dam and replace the bridge, we actually are fortunate in this site. And what we plan to do is utilize the mill race on the left-hand side there, and we'll coffer dam off the river just upstream of the Lincoln Athletic Building and shunt all the flow into the mill race, drying up the section of river where the dam and the bridge are, so that work can all be completed in the dry with no river flows through there. And then obviously in our stockpile and staging areas, those will be protected with standard siltation barriers and hay bales or straw bales in order to minimize any migration of silt off the site. And then the stormwater improvements, I touched on these a little bit, but it's important to note that we're actually reducing the impervious pavement by 2,800 square feet with with the way we reconfigure the interchange with High Street and Wall Street and the new driveway to the DPW facility. And as part of constructing the new bridge, the intersection and that section of roadway will all have new catch basins with the current standard 4-foot deep sumps. And the outfalls will go through the new bridge wing walls. And then, as I mentioned, the bioretention swale for the storm drainage along the new driveway and parking to DPW, and the stormwater treatment chamber that's offline for the High Street drainage system. And with the proposed design, there'll be no increase in peak rates of discharge of stormwater, which is always a goal. And I'm going to turn it back to Megan.
Great, thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Megan Raymond again. We're here this evening, obviously, as this project relates to the delineated and protected wetland resources in the project vicinity. And with a project such as this, and consistent with the notice of intent for ecological restoration, it's important to note that there's no net loss of any wetland resources through this project. What we're going to see is a slight modification as to the allotment of these resources with the removal of the dam and the restoration of river flow. We're going to see a decrease in land underwater in favor of more bordering vegetated wetland. And this is a typical occurrence that exists when we remove a flow impediment. We have tabulated these modifications in the reporting, and made sure that in working through all these processes that all of the performance standards for each of these facets in each protected wetland resource as it relates to bank, land underwater, bordering land subject to flooding, and riverfront area are adhered to and consistent with. It's an interesting configuration this with the dam and the river. We do see as we move along this river system, the dam didn't modify intrinsically a lot of the morphological properties that we expect to see in a river system. As you look upstream, we see a lot of nice meander bends that exist with bordering and emergent vegetation on both sides. So what we're going to see as the dam is removed is a decrease in water level and a little bit more vegetated area along the appurtenant of the water line, but again, no net loss of any resource. That, in concert with the water quality improvements that Andy described, as well as the ability to facilitate greater fish mobility, being this is the first dam between here and Mount Hope Bay down in Bristol, Rhode Island. There's a lot of really exciting aspects of the project as it relates to wetland resources that we're really pleased to share with you this evening. And I'll turn it back to Andy, I believe. Thank you.
So this is a photo simulation. The photo on the top is existing conditions. That's the back of the Lincoln Athletic Building, and the bridge is on the left. Flow basically originates over your shoulder on your right and comes around and in front of you in this photo. And so what we did on the bottom is the photo simulation. You can see that we've replaced the bridge with a newer structure and dropped the water level. And I guess it's most evident if you look at the bank, the river bank in front of the Lincoln Athletic Building. You can see it drops there about 6 feet of the water surface. And then the other thing is on the left-hand side, it's really mostly out of the vision of the photo, but that's that area of BVW that it will get larger. Is that correct, Raymond? Megan, because that's the water is going to shrink away from there. And then the next one. So this is a picture of the river, and this orientation is a little bit different than everything else you've seen so far. So the river flows from right to left here, and the High Street dam and bridge is in the very lower left-hand corner. You can see the town line kind of runs north-south or straight up and down in the middle there. And so I've worked on a lot of dam removal projects, and while none is the same, or they're all different, so to speak, typically you think of a dam and the impoundment behind the dam as being a big pond or a broad teardrop shaped lake. And Town River at this dam is a little bit different, and it's what we call a run-of-the-river dam. And basically the sinuosity that Megan described of the river is still there. It's just that the water levels are deeper than they were before there was a dam there. So you can see in this photo quite nicely what the river would have looked like before there was a dam there. Lots of times with those large teardrop shaped impoundments, you can't tell where the stream was or the river was before the dam was placed to back up water. And the other thing that this illustrates is obviously when we remove the dam at just below High Street, the water levels are going to drop based upon normal bankful events about 6 feet at those downstream areas near the Lincoln Athletic Building and about 5 feet at the town line. And then obviously, as you work your way upstream into West Bridgewater, the amount of water surface elevation change is less dramatic. And this photo actually shows pretty well. That's the golf course, which shows up. The fairways show nicely here. You can see that the water levels will drop as you go further upstream to zero up at Route 28. Now this is the water level drops for a bankful event, which is about a 1.5 or 2 year storm, and that bankful is exactly what you would think it is. It's the stream channel flowing full, and so it's important to know when you think about this that rivers aren't static. When it rains, and it rains a lot, the water level comes up more. And if there's a drought, the water levels drop quite a bit, and the river can be running really low. So it's important to keep in mind that while we are going to be lowering water surface elevations, there's a natural fluctuation in any river. It just happens in this particular case, those variations will be lower than they are today. And it's also important to look at this figure. You can see in the aerial, if you follow the main thread of the river, it's very sinuous, and there are lobes and oxbows off of the main stem that show to be water in this aerial. We looked at aerials from a different time that were taken different times of the year. Probably this is a spring or a fall where those lobes show impounded water. During drier times, those lobes aren't there. And so that's the kind of changes that we're going to see post dam removal, is those lobes will either not be there as often, or they'll be shallower, and the main flow in that sinuous channel will be the predominant river function when we're done. And I think that's the last one. So I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very thorough presentation. I know the commission's very familiar with the area, so at this time I'll start with Steve for your input.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, everyone. I've seen the presentation before, and it was geared a little bit more towards conservation this time, which I think is appropriate. I was brought onto this project when I first started with the town of Bridgewater back last October. So I'm familiar with the working of the project up to this point.
I think we lost Steve.
Yep.
You can't hear me?
No. Still no. No. It's Steve. While you're having technical difficulties, I'll go on with the commission. I, at this time, do not have any questions. Going through the notice of intent, again, I thank you very much for a thorough presentation. So Harry, at this time, any questions?
I've been involved in this since 2015 through the Taunton River Stewardship Council. And right at the moment, Sarah Burns reports to us at every meeting on the project. So I know all about it, have been for a while, and this is one of the best presentations I've ever seen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eileen?
I just think it's a very much needed project in the town. It's been an eyesore for years. You can tell it's a mess down there, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm all for it.
Thank you. I think as Steve still is trying to get on, we will try to do a site walk together. We'll list a quorum site walk for the public and stuff also. So at this time, I am gonna and Steve, you can join in when you get your volume on. I'm gonna ask anybody in the audience that has a question on this. They can signal Jasmine. And I am at this time going to direct all the questions to the project team. I'll let them decide who answers the question. So Jasmine, anybody?
Helps if I unmute.
Do we have Jasmine?
Here we go. Steve Barker has his hand raised. Steve, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Barker, 60 Ash Street. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Steve.
Ready.
All right, thanks. It was commented that there'd be no wetland lost, and I just wanted to clarify, is that in regards to the area immediately surrounding the dam, or is that in reference to the entire length of the river upstream?
Do you want me to
Megan, I'll let
take
you
that?
answer that.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Thanks for the question, Steve. Yeah, that relates to the entire project area. Where there's not any loss of wetland resource in conjunction with this project, but just a modification of protected areas, with the primary shift being a shift from land underwater to bordering vegetated wetland.
And that goes to the Route 28 bridge?
Correct. All the way up to the impoundment, the entire studied area. Yes.
Thank you.
thank you, Steve and Megan. Jasmine, anybody else, please?
Yes, I have Mr. Delano. I'm going to ask you to please speak. Just state your name and address for the record.
Can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you, John.
Hi, I'm John Delano. I'm the conservation agent for West Bridgewater. Could the team talk about the change in the width of the river? I know you've given us the breakdown of the drop in the elevation of the water surface, but can you talk about the width along various points along the river?
Thank you, Mr. Delano, for the question. This is Chris Hool from the Division of Ecological Restoration responding. Thank you, Andy, for bringing up that slide. I think this slide is really the best one we have for that question. The short answer is that the width of the river the decrease of the pond it'll be more as you get closer to Bridgewater and the High Street Dam, and much less as you get into Bridgewater, or West Bridgewater, excuse me. So we have in the design reports laid out a number of cross sections throughout this whole area where we could look at specific decreases at different storm events, but it's rather difficult to say. In this point, you're going to see a change in river width of 10 feet per se, because it depends upon which storm event you're looking at. It depends upon where you are in the river, because as Andy explained, up toward the Route 28 bridge in West Bridgewater, it's almost nothing, whereas down closer to the High Street Dam and the West Bridgewater line, it's quite more. You can just see from this figure, you have a little bit of a pond shape where the river takes a hard bend just north of the West Bridgewater line. So I don't have a perfect answer for you. We do have some of that information for different storm events laid out in the design reports that I believe were part of the submission, but if not, we can provide that as supplementary materials. Andy, is there, or Megan, is there anything you'd like to add to that before I let Mr. Delano respond?
I think you summarized it really well, Chris. I mean, I think there's going to be obviously a narrowing of water area in favor of vegetated, a wider vegetated system, kind of similar to what we see as we're moving upstream. The largest pronouncement is going to be closest to the dam, and as you move upstream, those dimensions are going to shift, and to the point where as you move probably beyond, you know, as you get upwards of, you know, as you're moving along this golf course here, it's going to be it's not going to be something that you might necessarily observe with your naked eye. If you kind of compare the morphology of this system with the nice meander bends up in this reach, or up in like the -3, -2, -1, to an area, to an unaffected condition downstream of the dam a ways, you're seeing a very similar similar patterning. But we can dig out some of these firmer dimensions for you if you'd like to have some quantification of these areas. But in general, I think it's been summarized pretty well.
Yeah, what we could do is, if you had a specific location that you were concerned about, we could find the nearest cross sections that were in our HECRAS model, or which is the river analysis model that's used in, you know, really all of these type of projects. We can pull out those cross sections in that model and provide those, and you can see how the river might change at various storm events. So that's something we have, but, you know, certainly to the level of detail that, you know, I doubt we provided with our filing.
Well, thank you for that answer. And I did post on social media a chart from that report that you're referring to, where it does specifically show the cross sections and the change in the width bankfull condition. So I'm assuming that's what you're using, what type of condition you're using for this drop in elevation on the slide that we're seeing on the screen. So I just wanted to make sure for all of the residents from West Bridgewater that are attending the Zoom meeting that chart that was posted was accurate, and it sounds like it is from what you're describing. But I do have a question. That's bankfull conditions. So typically during the summer months in West Bridgewater, the flow through the system is pretty small. And I'm wondering how the current impoundment with small flows that happen during the summer affect that. And then without the impoundment, will it be that much more significant, or is there a lot of leakage around the existing dam, or does the raceway take some of that water that we see during the middle of the summer? Is that going to change that much more, or is it going to be pretty much what we see now during the summer months?
Well, I think the best way to answer that is, you know, make no mistake about it. We're proposing to remove the dam, and the dam is roughly, I don't have the exact number, but Andy can confirm, 8 to 10 feet tall, call it 10 feet tall. So make no mistake about it, we will be lowering water levels by, you know, at the dam location by approximately 10 feet. What this figure shows is as you move upstream, that change will be less. As you get up into West Bridgewater and closer to Route 28, or the right side of this figure that's on the screen right now, you'd see very little change in the summer months, particularly compared to like a year like this year, where we had such a bad drought. Not that I went out to that location this summer, but my expectation, I would suspect, was that the river looked quite dry and was quite low and quite narrow. So you'd expect a very similar location, or a similar scenario to that. As you look toward the West Bridgewater town line, is it possible that it would be challenging to have a canoe in the middle of a drought, say in August, after the dam removal? Possibly. Yeah, there will be some recreational challenges in the driest of months, but the trade-off to that is that you'll now be removing an obstruction for recreation that now is, in the current condition, is quite unsafe. One would have to portage, take out around the APC property, their Lincoln Athletic property, portage across High Street, all the way down through the park until they get to a point on the southern end of the park that is no longer walled in. So that wouldn't be the case in most of the other months when you're sort of outside of that driest or drought season. So I mean, your question's a little tough to answer, but you know, make no mistake about it, water levels will decline. You know, it's part of the trade-off for the other benefits that come with the project.
I wanted to add just a little bit, Chris.
Please.
The numbers that we show here are for changes for bank full, which is, you know, a 1.5 or a 2-year storm. So it's sort of that annual spring flood. So, and I think the question is posed from the perspective of, in the summer when it's drier, is it going to be even worse? And so hydraulically, or the way it works is these numbers are sort of in the middle. And then when you have lower flows than bank full, like you would have, you know, a dry lower flow in the summer, these numbers are going to be less. There'll be less of a change when it's dry. So if you're not going to have, where we show 2 feet at the golf course, you're not going to have a 2-foot differential if you're looking at, say, this summer in August when it was super dry. If post dam removal, the same exact flow conditions, they won't be 2 feet. It won't be 2 feet lower. It'll be quite a bit less of a drop. And then it's sort of the opposite end of the spectrum when we have, if you had a 100-year flood, which is a significant amount of water, these numbers would all be a bigger drop than they are here for a big storm event. Does that make sense? So the bigger the storm event, the more we're dropping water surface. A lower storm event or really low flows are going to be less of a change than these numbers show.
What you're saying is that during a 100-year, not a 100-year storm, but a flooding, annual flooding, there should be less flooding.
Yeah, yes. So that's a function of all dam removals, is because we're taking out this water that's impounded behind the dam. There's now more flow conveyance in the river. So these numbers that we show as a drop for this bank full event, if you get a storm event that's greater, you'll end up with the same water elevations that you would have had before with more flow. So you can convey more flow with a bigger storm after we take the dam out.
All right, thank you. And just one more question and I'll stop monopolizing this conversation. Chris, you probably would even probably be the one to ask, but is there any thought by the state to take the next dam down?
I think the question is referring to the War Memorial Park Dam in West Bridgewater.
That's correct.
In terms of my agency, specifically the Division of Ecological Restoration, that is not a priority project for our division, so that is not one that we are working on.
All right, thank you.
For dam removal.
Thank you.
Our sister, well, just to add to that, our sister agency, the Division of Marine Fisheries, is working in partnership, working in partnership with the town of West Bridgewater to install a nature-like fishway at that dam, not to remove the dam, but to encourage additional or better fish passage at the dam. That is a town-owned, West Bridgewater town-owned dam. That is a project that is led solely by the town. being supported by the Division of Marine Fisheries. So unfortunately, Sarah Turner from the Division of Marine Fisheries had to log off this call a short time ago, but she would be the person to contact with questions about the progress on that project. That was not one that I am working on or this engineering team.
All right, thank you, Chris.
John,
And
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn.
Happy to have you tonight. Jasmine, anybody else, please?
I have a Mark Oliver raising his hand. Mark, could you please state your name and address for the record?
Hi, I own property on Oak Street, 52 Oak Street. And most of your presentation, both of them, this one and the previous one, have looked at upstream impoundment. Since I'm downstream right before the Oak Street Bridge, I'm just curious about increase in river height or anything like that that could potentially impact my property. I have about 6 acres along the river.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Oliver. I'd be happy to take it, but I think I might pass this one to Andy. This is in your wheelhouse, Andy, so I'm happy to add to it, but I'll let you talk. I've been talking too much.
All right, I'll start. You can follow me up. We get this question a lot, and so we do a hydraulic model of the river. It's called HEC-RAS, where we model different flow conditions, and it's actually quite interesting when you look at it. When we remove the dam, almost immediately downstream of the dam, there's no change, and people often wonder about that. Now, I guess I should preface this with, so some dams are flood control dams, and they do hold back water, and they do provide some flood benefit downstream. This is not a flood control dam. It doesn't hold back any water. It doesn't provide any flood benefit. And Jim McBroom, one of our founders, always used to use the swimming pool analogy. So if you have a swimming pool that's full of water and you run a hose into one side of the swimming pool, there's going to be the same amount of water, the equivalent of a hose, flowing out of the other end of the swimming pool. And that's kind of what happens here is you're downstream. So no matter how much water goes into that swimming pool, you're going to get the same amount of water coming out of the swimming pool on the downstream side. So there's no, and when we take the swimming pool out, you just have the hose of water upstream running through the site and coming downstream. You want to add to that, Chris?
No, I think you hit it perfectly. You know, just to go first full circle there, you know, we don't expect any impacts to properties downstream of the High Street Dam. The current condition of the river, the flows that you see in the river today will be the same that you see after the dam is removed in all flow scenarios, in all storm event scenarios, or low flow scenarios for that matter. So just wanted to sort of close the loop. No change expected downstream of the project.
Thank you. And Mark Oliver, can I just ask you for the record, is that your resident address or is that property that you own?
That's the property I own. My residence address is on Center Street.
Can you state your residence address for the record, please?
Yeah, it's 49 Center Street.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you for answering my question.
Jasmine, anybody next, please?
Mr. Steve Barker, are you waiting to ask another question? I see the hand is raised. I'm not sure.
Yes. So Stephen Barker, 60 F Street again. I was just curious if you could comment on any anticipated impact to the wildlife habitat. I know there's a bunch of fish here, a whole bunch of birds live around here, turtles. There's like a otter or a muskrat or whatever, something like that lives in the river here. Just curious if you anticipate any impact on the habitat for wildlife.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Barker. We get that question a lot. Again, this is Chris Houle from the Division of Ecological Restoration. You know, you may have seen photos or videos of dam removals out in the West Coast, big flood control dams that get blown up with dynamite, and you have a big sudden change of a big rush of water downstream and fish and other things that get stranded up in the former dam impoundment, former dam pond. That's not what's going to happen here. In this case, as Andy laid out in one of his earlier slides, There is weir boards that are on the mill race of the western side of the park, Stanley Islandworth Park, or the western side of the project area. And those will be, they're approximately 6-inch tall boards. They'll be removed slowly, prior to the bulk of the construction work to start to lower those water levels. So any fish that are in the impoundment will have an opportunity to move. Turtles will have the opportunity to move, muskrats, etc. And they will move and they will survive. And then similarly with the dam, when the dam itself will start to be demoed, it will be demoed in stages. It won't be just blasted. We won't be using any explosives. This will be, it'll be a fair, the process will take several days. So the animals that will be in the pond will have an opportunity to move. One thing to add.
I guess I meant more permanent changes. Like, will it still be an appropriate environment for a muskrat or large turtles, big bass, things of that, great blue herons, large birds, things like that? Is it going to stay the same habitat that it is now?
It will it will not be a pond habitat. So some of the pond and life that you see might change. We get this question a lot. Will the ducks still be there? I see lots of dam removals with ducks still swimming in the middle of the river. So I don't want to say what's going to be there or not. Fish like bass and pickerel and perch are warm water species. The water might still be warm enough for them, but they might not like that particular habitat that's formed, or they might find pockets that they do like. What is beneficial here is that you'll have new wildlife that will be able to utilize this area that can't currently or are limited, such as river herring, American eel, possibly American shad as well. So you'll see new species that enter this resource, that currently cannot enter this resource. So there will certainly be a change, but typically we see these areas improve and become more vibrant, become more productive for the range of species that might otherwise inhabit this area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine, any other further questions?
Steve said he would like to try his mic again.
Yep, go ahead, Steve.
Still no?
There we go.
There you go.
Yay!
Before I was so rudely cut off by some technical difficulties, I was about to say that, yes, I know that Harry has an awful lot of experience with the rivers in the area. And it was nice to hear your words on the project and that the type of need that this project requires, not above and beyond the environmental resource areas, but in addition to them. And just listening to the conversation has been really good too. But what Marilyn was leading to, and what I suggest, is that this commission would probably really like to see the site, even though they're familiar with it, with the plans in hand. I have spoken with them about setting up a potential site visit with the hard copies in hand, so that potential representatives from the applicants can come out, whoever may be available. They floated a couple dates to me, and I recommend that we just take this time to, go through the information. I've reviewed it all. I want the commissioners to get a little bit more time to review it. We've had some outside environmental factors that have limited my availability in the last couple of weeks, to get out there and show them and take them around and do the types of things that I'm typically doing. So with that being said, I'll give it back to the questions, so we can hear more from residents and abutters.
Thank you, Steve.
Mark, Oliver, are you raising your hand to ask another question, or is your hand still raised from previously?
I'm sorry, it was still raised from previously.
That's good. Thank you, Mark.
Marilyn, I'm not seeing anybody else. I don't see anybody in the chat or any hands raised.
Okay. All right. Then Steve, let's shoot a couple of dates out and see what works. Let me just kind of peek up but I just put my goggles with my hospital schedule. We have next Tuesday or the 22nd also, the 2 Tuesdays coming up. If anybody, if those work for the project team, we would love to meet you out there, post a meeting. Be
So if
welcome
we-
to the public.
So if we do Tuesday, the 15th, I will have to have Jasmine post with the clerk if we're going to have a full quorum, or even actually at this point, if we're going to have even 2 of you, because that constitutes a majority, we should consider that moving forward as well. On these site visits, anytime we constitute a majority, that we have a public meeting notice put out. So if we're going to do Tuesday, we just got to act fast. That's all.
Okay, is Tuesday good for everybody? Will we have somebody from the project team out there?
The Tuesday, the 15th, I assume you're referring to, that is acceptable for me. I'd be more than happy to show the commission the site. I don't know that we will have representation from the consultant team, Mylon and McBroom, Andy or Megan, but if it's okay with the commission, I would like to move ahead with that date.
That sounds great. Thank you, Christopher. So Jasmine, we'll have Jasmine post that meeting and 1 o'clock-ish, 1?
Works for me.
Okay, all
1
right.
o'clock on the 15th, just to confirm.
Yep, and that'll be posted. All right, thank you very much. So at this time, no further questions, and Chair will entertain a motion for
Motion.
continuance.
To close and for continuance.
Well,
correct.
continuance, yeah.
Okay, so then I'll make a motion for continuance to the January 14th date,
Second.
6:30.
Hearing a second, any further questions? Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please. Marilyn McDonald, aye. Harry Bailey,
Aye.
Eileen Prisco.
Aye.
Again, thank you very much for your presentation and for the questions from abutters and interested parties. And we will have a posting on the website as to our site quorum walk. Again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you
care.
very much.
Bye-bye.
All right, at this time, we are going into Conservation Commission business. At this time, I would like a motion just to take a 2-minute break.
Motion to make a 2-minute break.
Second.
All right. Me too.
So weird that that mic does that.
I know. Are you using the laptop?
No, I mean, I've got the dual monitor set up
Huh.
and it's a webcam on top of one of the screens, but I don't know. It was doing it during class too. Off and on though, it's weird. It's just out of nowhere. I mean, I think it's happened maybe once or twice before during meetings, but it generally adjusts itself pretty quickly.
Yeah, I haven't had that issue, but I use my headphones.
Yeah, I gotta probably do that too. I mean, this setup has Bluetooth capability, and I've got a couple of sets of Bluetooth with mics. So, what'd you think of the presentation? I thought they do a great job, that team.
Oh, absolutely. That was fantastic. It was so thorough.
Excited to show the commissioners the site, even though they're all familiar with it. It will be good though. It's a complex project, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting though.
Yeah.
All right, everybody back?
We're here.
You're back.
Not that I went anywhere.
I literally haven't gone anywhere.
I know, huh? All right, we will go into Conservation Commission business. Request for certificate of compliance, 137, 139 Wall Street. Steve?
Yeah, so these, a couple of these tonight are just they're old orders of conditions from the 90s. This is one of them. The site is stable. I didn't see any signs of any enforcement matters, typical things I look for on older filings like this. So I would suggest the issuance of a certificate of compliance for Broad Street. This is Broad Street, right?
Yeah, Wall Street, 137,
Wall Street, sorry.
yeah,
Wall
Wall
Street.
Street. Okay, great, thank you. Commissioners, Harry, anything?
No.
Eileen?
No.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion, please.
Is this a motion to approve the
Issue.
OC? Yeah, okay.
Issue the certificate. of
To issue the
compliance.
certificate of compliance? Okay.
Second.
Hearing a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Marilyn McDonald, aye. Harry Bailey,
Aye.
Eileen Prisco.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving forward, request for certificate of compliance, 10 Easy Street, all in Easy Street. Steve?
Yeah, same situation, very similar to the last one. An old filing, a real estate transaction, and the order of conditions is needed to be closed out for that transaction to occur easily. So I suggested issuance of the certificate of compliance.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Harry?
No.
Eileen?
No.
All right, Chair would entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve 10 Easy Street certificate of compliance.
Second.
Hearing a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Marilyn McDonald, aye. Harry Bailey,
Aye.
Eileen Prisco.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then last, we have certificate of compliance, 557 Old Forest Street. Steve, please.
Yep, and this is the last one. This one's a little bit more recent. I did the sidewalk. I had to track it down on my computer just recently. Let me bring it back up. There's an email addressed from, it looks like the beginning of November. I've got an as-built plan here. The stakes are still in the ground. It's a single-family home with a deck and patio, existing garage. Looking for certificate of compliance. Went out and checked the site. As I said, the posts are still there, demarcating the 25-foot no touch. The site is pretty close to the wetlands, but is in compliance. So therefore, I suggest issuing a certificate of compliance.
Okay, thank you. Harry, any questions?
No, I went out there. I looked at it. It's fine.
All right, Eileen?
Same here. I agree.
Okay. All right, then Chair would entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve the 557 Old Forest Street certificate of compliance.
Second.
Hearing a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Marilyn McDonald, aye. Harry Bailey,
Aye.
Eileen Prisco.
Aye.
Okay. All right, and then the other thing I was going to suggest under conservation business, seeing as we're going to be posting for the High Street Dam, if we could also, because I would probably was going to grab Harry to go out on Broad Street or Eileen. So you want to do that the same day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we post? Do you want to do it before the 1 o'clock or after? Or
That's up to you guys. That's my first day back in town, so I'll be excited to get around people again.
stay back in town?
After's fine.
After's all right.
That way I
Oh,
can
man, I'll cancel my massage. All right.
Too bad.
Oh, man. You guys are killing me.
Is 2 o'clock okay, or is that too soon?
It might. What do you think? I mean,
1:45.
yeah, 1 point. I just want ample time on the High Street,
High
especially
Street,
if the
yeah.
residents are.
So maybe do
anybody's
2.
gonna be-
That's
Yeah,
fine.
we'll safely do it for 2 then, if we're running behind. So I don't think anybody would be attending that one. Not sure.
I could always post it for 2:30.
No, 2 o'clock.
Okay.
An hour's plenty.
Yeah.
An hour's plenty.
An hour,
An
at
hour
High
should be
Street.
good.
An hour should be good at High Street.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So 2 o'clock. Perfect. We got a 1 and a 2. Okay. Anything further from anybody?
No.
Okay, then you know what motion I will entertain.
Motion to adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn, I am.
Second. We're right.
No further discussion. All in favor? Aye. All right. Everybody have a good night. Steve, we're glad you're feeling better. All right.
Yep,
We will see
I
you.
was feeling fine the whole time. I just happened to be around someone. That's all.
It happens.
Thank you, guys.
We will see
Thank
you
you.
on that Tuesday then. And Jasmine, you'll post all that tomorrow, hon?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
All right, great. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, guys. You
Great
too.
job tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Right.